Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's top 20 worst episodes of the 90s, The Outer Limits. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review every single solitary episode of the 90s, The Outer Limits, one season at a time. I have covered all 7 seasons, so I'm here to count down my top 20 least favorite episodes of the show, and then of course I shall return to count down my top 40 favorite episodes of the show. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with my channel or maybe finding me for the first time, I usually do this with a lot of shows, mainly Star Trek shows, but other shows as well, where I'll cover every episode of that show, one season at a time, in these really long, drawn out, 2-hour long videos. And once I'm done covering all the episodes, I do countdowns where I count down my favorite and least favorite episodes, and also long, drawn out, rambling videos that last an hour or two, where I just talk for however long I feel like about each episode. So the point of the video is not to appeal to mass audiences or to be like 5-10 minutes long. The point is for it to be however long I freaking feel like it. That's the whole point of the video. It's funny how many times I have to explain this in comments. Anywho, so also the other thing I have to repeat myself on is just because I have a worst list doesn't mean I don't like the show. I in fact do love the show. If I didn't love The Outer Limits, which I do think is actually one of the best science fiction shows of all time, why would I watch every single episode and spend hours talking about a show that I don't like? It doesn't make any sense. Of course I love the show. However, just because I love the show doesn't mean I like every single solitary episode in that show. There are, in fact, episodes that I do not like, which I did not think worked, and his video is for that, for me to talk about the worst episodes in what I would think is otherwise a really great show. Now, The Outer Limits in particular being an anthology show, I thought it would be harder to sit through than it was, to be fair. It was easier to sit through than I thought, but I knew that there would be a lot of episodes that were subpar and didn't work. And to be fair, it wasn't as many as I had feared. And most of the episodes that weren't all that great were just okay. Like, they were fine. However, there were a few that were really bad. And so I'm here to talk about those episodes. And so I narrowed it down to 20. And there's 155 episodes in the show. So 20 bad episodes out of 155. That's not bad. Not bad at all. Anyway, I give each episode a rating from 1 to 10 as I watch it. So 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. And so I group those episodes in those countdowns in those ratings. So before I talk about a group of episodes that I gave a rating to, a rating will flash on the screen that will show what rating I give the group of episodes I'm about to talk about. So let's go ahead and start with that. So I'm going to start with my number 20 worst episode of The Outer Limits, and that will be an episode called Down to Earth. This is one of these comedy episodes. You'll find a couple of those in The Outer Limits. It's funny, I don't think they started doing comedy episodes until later seasons. I think they're trying too much to be like The X-Files, because The X-Files' most popular episodes were comedy episodes, of which they have 1 or 2 a season. They're like, well, why don't we have comedy episodes? Because The Outer Limits shouldn't be a comedy show, and you're not good at it, that's why. But anyway, this one featured that guy from Whose Line Is It Anyway? It was weird to actually see him play a character and not just do improv. But he's a fairly good comedic actor, but the episode was just dumb. So it was about, I don't think, and also it was really trying to be X-Files like, because it's about like UFO fanatics, which Is that really a thing? Like, nobody really cared. I feel like people cared about that more in the 90s. I don't know. But anyway, it mocks them and makes fun of them because they're all like geeks and nerds and overweight and they can't get along. They just argue with each other and they meet someone who actually did have an encounter with an alien, which does seem like an interesting concept, but what they do with it is ridiculous. That guy from Whose Line Is It Anyway is like overly paranoid and full of himself, and all these like ridiculous hijinks ensue at a convention, and they're not sure if the alien was really an alien, but then they have this alien technology that they're going to reveal to the world, but then the Whose Line Is It Anyway guy convinces them that this other guy is actually working for the government, and so they better hide it from him. But it turns out that guy, the Whose Line Is It Anyway guy, is actually an alien, and he was like, my evil plan. That was so stupid. I'm sorry, that was dumb. I thought it was a horrible reveal. This episode, for the most part, was not funny. It was goofy. I don't like the way it's pokes fun. And, like, I've never been to UFO things myself, so I don't take it personally. But I still didn't appreciate how it really mocked the people portrayed in this episode. It's a really, like, I don't know. I don't think it's smart for science fiction shows to mock people for liking science fiction or saying that they're too geeky. I don't know. That doesn't seem like a smart tactic to me. Just saying. But anywho, yeah, it was a dumb episode. So, we'll get into the next episode on my list, number 19, which is called Corner of the Eye. This is a season 1 episode. This is one I had seen before my rewatch, because I'd seen all of season 1. But I had actually seen this before I got the DVD of season 1, so I've seen it several. I had the misfortune of seeing this episode several times, and it's got Prince Humperdinck from The Princess Bride in it, and it's a really, I don't know. I never liked this episode. I guess for one thing, I don't really like episodes that deal with religion. It has to do with a priest who is given like this power to heal people, but it's like given to him by the Prince Humperdinck, who is actually an alien, and there's aliens that have nefarious purposes, and they want to use this as a prelude to an invasion. I just thought it was a really terrible episode. I mean, I don't know. As I said, I'm not really into the priest can heal people thing. But I thought that as much as I like the actor Prince Humperdinck, I thought this character was it was obvious that he was up to something. And that he was evil. Like, I think he was the doctor or something. And just the way they revealed these aliens that look like demons, are like, we're gonna invade the earth, and then they had the priest, other priest, younger priest, was played by Colonel Young, when he was a bit younger, from Stargate SG-1. Not SG-1, SGU, Stargate Universe. Anyway, it was played by Colonel Young when he was younger, and he was like, oh no, I want to stop them from... I don't know. It just didn't... This episode just really didn't sit right with me. Alright, so then we'll get into my next episode, which is my number 18 on my list. I'm surprised it's only 18, but whatever. Maybe I need to change my list. It's called In the Zone. It's an episode about a sports. It's got that guy who played the mayor or something in The Heroes. You know, remember that TV show in the 2000s, Heroes? Anyway. He's in this. He's playing like this. It's like this weird futuristic sport that looks really stupid. And he was like a champion, but he's like getting old, and this other guy challenges him, and he thinks he's gonna lose. So he tries this like experimental, like Mr. Miyagi, I think, is the one that gives him like this experimental treatment, and like makes him like puts him out of time, where he's like super fast, so he's like a really good athlete, but he gets addicted to it, and he like becomes permanently out of time, and he's like stuck out of time. His girlfriend has to go get him, and it's yeah. I don't like sports themed stuff as well, and this is just a cheesy sports themed idea that just Didn't work. It relied on cliches, and it was just cheesy. That's my word of the day for this episode. It was cheesy. And eventually they revealed that Mr. Miyagi was actually 33 years old or something, even though he looks like he's in his 70s. I don't know. That's just that's anyway. Let me get into number 17 on my list, which is a special edition. And it's a special edition of crap. So this is the first clip show we get to in my top 20 worst list, but not the last, I assure you. This is a clip show I had seen before, my rewatch of The Outer Limits, or I don't even know if I technically call it a rewatch since I'd only seen like 10% of the show before. But anyway, I'd seen this episode several times before, and I was very angry and pissed off at why they kept showing this episode of reruns where there was literally like dozens and dozens of episodes, good episodes that I hadn't seen that they weren't fucking showing on the reruns, and they were just showing this one like 2 or 3 times. What's wrong with people? And why? I still don't understand why, and I think this is one of the biggest flaws of The Outer Limits, why they felt the need to end each season in a clip show. It's not a good idea. Why are you doing this? Anyway, this one was one of the worst. It features the dude from Family Ties, I believe. No, not Family Ties. Growing Pains. Sorry, I get all those 80s sitcoms mixed up. It features the dude from Growing Pains. And, yeah, the dude from Family Ties is actually in a different episode, but it's neither my top worst or best list. It was something Constant Moon. But anyway, dude from Growing Pains is in this episode, and he's plays a reporter who's like trying to uncover these government conspiracies, and of course it just so happens that all these government conspiracies are clips from other episodes that we've already seen, and sometimes they change the context of those episodes to fit the narrative of this story, which is something these dumb clip shows do quite a lot and not very well. And it turns out that the clips are kind of a mess. They don't really they don't really match up and create a narrative, and it's mainly this guy like trying to report on like genetically engineered going wrong. Actually, yeah, this is what the episode where they took an episode from that hadn't even aired yet from season 4, even though this episode was the finale of season 3. And they showed this clip to say that, oh, this guy has been genetically engineered and cloned because they show all these different versions of the same dude. But when you get to watch the actual episode, it's a parallel universe. It's not clones. I don't know. Anyway, so there's like a big twist ending where like something, oh yeah, the evil bad guys created a clone of the reporter, so they kill him and they kill everyone else, and the clone of him like goes, oh, I'm so wrong, I didn't do anything. Ironic ending. Da da da. Stupid episode. Anyway, let's get into number 16 on my list, which is a little episode called Gettysburg. Now, this episode was featured on a time travel DVD, so you get the impression that the people involved in the show liked this episode. I can't remember if it was ranked that high on IMDb. I think it was fairly high. I don't think it was like one of the best, but it was like not one of the worst. This episode actively bothers me. Now, it's funny because I remember I've seen this episode before because it was on that DVD, the time travel one, which I got in the early 2000s. And so when I remember not liking this episode, but when I was rewatching it, I was like, hey, this episode's actually pretty good. Like, it's not that bad. But then the more it went on, the more I was like, oh, right. This is why I hate this episode. And the main reason is because it could have been a good episode, which to me is actually often a lot more frustrating than something that actually just outright sucks from the beginning. It always sucks. But if you have something that's good, but then it turns to shit, and it could have been good had it been done differently. So this episode in particular, it keeps setting up like all these really interesting story points, and then it does nothing with them. Like, it sets up that this guy who's teleported into the Civil War times from the future, from our present, he has like this sports almanac equivalent. He has like a history book of the Civil War that has like everything that's going to happen, who's going to die, and generals and all that. And he stays at this house, and this woman like finds it, and she gives it back to him. She starts reading it, and she gives it back to him. It's like, whoa, that's fascinating. Well, how's that going to change history? What's she going to do because of it? What information is she going to collect? No, nothing. Absolutely nothing happens from it. And he also helps save her. He helps deliver her baby. Like, he helps her give birth, and maybe if he wasn't there, that baby wouldn't die. So maybe that would alter history. Is that like his great grandmother? Did he just save his own life, or did he birth the new Hitler? What happened out of it? Nothing. It's never touched on ever again. And also, like, the time traveler Preston, who appeared in a different episode, a much better episode that will appear on my best list. They're like, oh, let's bring this character back. How about you probably shouldn't have actually done that, especially if you're going to turn him into a reckless moron that has that does not value human life at all, because he just recklessly teleports three people back to the Civil War. One was by accident. He didn't even mean to, and that person immediately dies, and he doesn't care. He just killed someone who was supposed to live by recklessly teleporting him back into the Civil War. And the other guy's life is in danger, and he doesn't give a fuck. And he's like, oh, but this guy who's going to assassinate the president in the future, he has to learn his lesson. And of course, the guy doesn't learn a lesson, and he just dies because he's a moron. It's such a frustrating episode. It's because it's funny because they spent a lot of money on it. You can tell because there's so many extras, and they did a really good job recreating the Civil War. They got Meatloaf in it, who plays an asshole like pretty well. But the plot is shit. It really was not well thought out. They completely ruined Princess's character. And he recklessly murders people, and they set up all these things that would be fascinating story points, and do nothing with them. That's frustrating. So I don't know what happened. They ran out of time when writing this episode, or maybe a producer came in and edited, or I don't know. It is a bit of a mess. So yeah, not a good episode. Alright, so let's move on to my number 15, Flower Child. Another one I was unfortunate enough to see on a DVD before my rewatch. So this is an episode that basically is screaming at you the whole time, cheating is bad! Like, alright, because this one dude, who, by the way, like, was enchanted with pheromones by an alien. Because he couldn't keep it in his pants, the human race is going to come to an end. So, an alien like comes by in the form of a flower, and it kills this old woman and mutates into a really, really hot chick. And that hot chick, who's an alien, doesn't really know how humans function, somehow happens to know what apartments are and what rent is and when to pay it and what laundry is and stuff like that. I don't know how she knows all that. And maybe she was like the dude from Apocalypse, from X-Men Apocalypse, who touches the TV and goes, learning. Maybe she's like that. I don't know. Anywho, she tries to bang this guy who's married. Like, she tried to bang this plumber dude, but he didn't have what she needed, so she murdered him. I guess because he wasn't attractive enough. I don't know. Anyway, so she's trying to bang this dude who lives next door, who's engaged to be married, and the whole episode's about him like turning her down because, no, I'm engaged, blah blah blah. And then he's like, she gives him like some pheromones that make him like drunk, whatever, and has her way with him. And he's getting sick because of it, and the girlfriend is like pissed off because he cheated. And then they find that the alien's sort of mutated and looks ugly, and like an alien, she like opens out her mouth like really wide with like terrible CGI and goes ah, and all these like little seedlings spew out into the world, and they're going to take over the human race. Dun dun dun! Isn't that scary? No, it's stupid. I'm sorry. It's not scary. The whole thing's dumb, and it was like the whole thing. Oh no! This all happened because he cheated. Anyway, let me get into the next one on my list, which is an episode called Josh. This is a silly episode. I know it's trying to be like The Conversion, which you'll find on my best list. It's trying to have that same sort of new age, lovey-dovey feel that episode actually really accomplished. This episode does not. It fails miserably. And it's just a bit, it reminds me too much of a low-budget B-type syndicated sci-fi show. It's just silly and over the top, and it's about like this guy named Josh, and I can't tell you if he's an alien or if he has power. I guess he's an alien because he leaves Earth, but they never really explain what his deal is, and that's part of the mystery. Ooh. And it's about this reporter who tries to out him, and she does, but then it has like consequences. The military arrests him, tries to experiment on him, and she changes her mind and helps him escape. And yeah, it's just it was just not a well written episode. It was like an idea that wasn't fully fleshed out, and just didn't work for me. Anyway. Well, then getting to number 13 on my list, which is an episode called In Our Own Image. This is another fucking clip show. I think this was the season 3 finale, if I remember correctly. Now, it had Nana Visitor in it, and she gives a fairly good performance, but they wasted, like, why are you going to waste such a good actor? Major Kira, come on, you're wasting such a good actor on such a crap like clip show. Okay, so this dude is like an android or something, and he breaks out of a facility and he kidnaps the secretary down a visitor, and they have like interesting interactions, and he like tells her stories that are clips from other episodes. And then we find out that that Nana Visitor isn't actually a secretary. She's like this high up FBI, CIA, whatever fucking agency. I can't even remember. SHIELD? I don't know. MIA? MIA? What was that one from Mission Impossible? MF, Mission Impossible Mission Force. Anyway, whatever fucking agency she's from, then she's the bad guy, basically, who tries to, like, deceive him, but he gets the better of her. And there's a bunch of clips that have nothing to do with anything! Let's move on. Anyway, we'll get into the next episode. My number 12, Descent. This is a dumb episode. It's got the dude, this actor I've seen in... He's a good actor. I've seen him play crazy people. He's in Voyager a couple of times, I think. And he was the dude in that movie Very Bad Things with Christian Slater, who killed a prostitute because he was too drunk. What he's been in? He was in Seven, where he was forced to kill a prostitute. Wow, he kills prostitutes a lot. Anyway, so that actor is like an anthropologist, because hey, why not? And he is studying a way to make. He's an anthropologist, but for some reason he's creating medical serums. Okay. And he's creating a serum to make humans, act like alpha, be the alpha, and it turns him into an animal. And he tries it on himself, of course, because he's a geek who's pushed around. And the episode does a very on-the-nose, over-the-top, cliche, on-the-nose. Did I say on-the-nose yet? I think it's worth saying again. job of pointing out how pathetic he is and how he's being pushed around and how he, once he takes the serum, he's the top dog and he pushes people around and he tries to sexually assault a woman because, hey, he's an alpha male. Yeah. And of course the experiment goes wrong because of course it does, and he turns into like a Neanderthal or something by the end, and they put him in the exhibit, and it's all poor. That's so stupid. Oh my god, this episode is terrible. Anywho, let's get into the next episode, which is, what is it? Out of Body. That's my number 11. Out of Body. It's got Rawls from Frasier. This is another one of those the episodes that Outer Limits does a billion times, where you got a scientist who has an experiment, but the person who's funding the experiments shuts them down, so they go and do the experiment on themselves. It's done like so many times in this show, and this is one of the worst examples of it, because she does the experiment where she is literally puts her consciousness out of the body, so they think that she's dead and she's in a coma, and her husband's like very upset, and then he goes, oh yeah, I think this one had the cigarette smoking man. Did it? I think so. I know he was in another episode. Yeah. So the cigarette smoking man is obviously the bad guy because he's working with this religious organization that's against these experiments, and they send in the spy to sabotage it, and that's why the experiment goes wrong, and her husband finds out, and then he does the same experiment, and he's out of body too. The episode was really boring. It didn't really, and the whole time it was like, oh look, I'm out of my body here. It doesn't work, and it's a cheesy ending, and it's just not good. Okay. Alright, so then we get into number 10 on my list, Human Trials. So this is yet another clip show. This just so happens to be the series finale of the entire show, which is a shame. It's funny because they had a clip show that came on right before this one with Tom Paris, which was actually fairly decent. Like, why couldn't they make that the series finale? I mean, and here's an idea. Here's a fresh idea. Why not do a fucking clip show for your series finale? How about that idea? Anyway, so this episode features these like experiments where these people are like experimenting to be like the most badass Marine or whatever fucking armed forces that they're in. Space Marine, obviously, they're on Mars or some shit. Anywho, so they're doing these tests to see who can be the most absolute elitist badass, and the follows this guy who's a bit of an asshole, and basically, so they put them into simulations where they control other situations and they control the body, and hey, guess what? These simulations just so happen to be clips! Sorry. From other fucking episodes that already aired, and they actually make no sense in the context of an actual experiment, and they have nothing to do with this episode, and the characters are so shallow, and the twist ending is like he wins the experiments and he gets to be tortured for the rest of his life for winning. What? Like, no! It's such a shame that such a great show went out on such a terrible episode. Come on, guys. Why couldn't you end it with like that dinosaur episode or some shit? Anyway, let me get into my next entry on my list, number 9, which is called Under the Bed. This is a season 1 episode. It's got the dude from, there's this show on ABC called Dirty Something, and I looked it up on the net and I could not find it. It doesn't verify that it exists. I'm sure it exists. I'm not dreaming this. Anyway, because this dude was in it. Anyway, he plays a child psychologist who It's fucking ripoff, okay? Why am I bothering explaining the plot? They're ripping off It. It's about a monster that kills young children that's hiding under the bed. Get it? That's the title of the episode. So the psychologist comes in, doesn't believe her, and then they find that the monster's real, and they go to the cave, and they kill it, and they go rejoin the Losers Club, and go back under the sewer. Because I don't know. This episode sucks. Sorry. Keep knocking my camera out. Anyway... Let's get into the next episode on my list, number 8, Seeds of Destruction. So this episode is really corny because it's set in a cornfield. Get it? Oh my god. Anyway, so this episode is about an evil genetically engineered crop that starts killing people and genetically modifying them and turning them into monsters. And the fucking CDC does not show up and shut the whole town down. See, after that didn't happen, which it fucking should have, I lost all interest in the episode, and then that doesn't happen, so they could add this stupid plot with like this woman who's cheating on her husband with this guy who's actually turns out to be the evil corporate guy who's has the evil genetically modified thing, and he I don't remember what happens. This episode's terrible. Anyway, let me get into the next episode on my list, number 7. Which is an episode called Mind Over Matter. And I know this may upset some people who are familiar with the episode, because this episode is, in fact, one of the highest rated episodes on IMDb. I was shocked to find this out, and it might be because Mark Hamill's in it. Look, I like Mark Hamill as much as the next guy, Luke Skywalker. He's a great guy. I mean, a decent actor, but a great guy. And he was Luke Skywalker. But the episode's still terrible. I mean, okay, so he plays this scientist who has a crush on the woman he's working with, and she gets in the coma, but he's working on this technology to go inside someone's mind and experiences like this virtual reality inside the mind. And he's like has a crush on her, so they start like having sex inside even though she's in a coma, but they have virtual sex or whatever. They have sex inside the virtual environment because he's inside her mind, and they start loving each other. And then there's this monster that pops up every once in a while, scares the shit out of them. So he thinks that it's the computer system itself is trying to like fuck with him, and that's the monster. And I think, like, it didn't, like, the twist ending, this is the most predictable twist ending that the show has ever done. Like, I predicted this twist ending, like, as soon as they showed the monster, I'm like, oh, wait, so that person that he's having sex with is actually the computer program, and the monster is actually the real woman whose consciousness is trying to reassert itself because the computer program's impersonating her and having sex with this dude, and she's trying to show up and reassert her actual consciousness. That's what's happening. Like, as soon as they saw the monster, immediately called it, and it took them a long time to get to that, and they had to reveal, like, there's this huge, shocking ending, and I want to be like, yeah, I know. Obviously, it's like the dude from the pitch meetings. I don't know if you ever seen that one. There was like, oh, and the big twist, and the producer names the twist immediately, and the writer later is like, and that's the twist, and the producer's like, yeah, I know. Like, that's exactly the situation. And the big twist, of course, is Mark Hamill kills the monster because he thinks he's shutting down the computer program, but it turns out he actually killed the consciousness of the woman. The computer program is like starts being all like Fatal Attraction, like, oh, I love you so much, blah blah blah, please love me. I'm sorry, but not only was that incredibly predictable, incredibly cliche, it is really cheesy and stupid. I'm so sorry. I know Mark Hamill's awesome. Doesn't change the fact that that episode sucks. Anywho. Alright, so let's finish this off by getting into my one-rated episodes, the worst of the worst of the worst. Let's start with my number 6, a little episode called Caught in the Act. This is a season 1 episode, which I think the people involved with the show like. Actually, if I recall, this was highly rated on IMDb, like up in the top 30, and the people, it's on the DVD, the producers seem to trance this around as one of the best episodes, and it's terrible. It's so cheesy. So this is like this alien spore comes to Earth from a meteor, and it takes over this chick's body and wants to have sex with every man she sees, and when she does have sex with them, she absorbs them and kills them or whatever, and it doesn't have what she needs. And her boyfriend's really jealous, doesn't know what's going on, and eventually they try to, like, the cops thinks that he is killing the people, and even though it's obvious that he's not. And then eventually, like, he has sex with her, and the alien's happy because he does have what she needs, because she was looking for someone that was in love with her. Oh, isn't that cute and cheesy and stupid? That's so dumb. Anyway, I hate this episode. Anyway, let me then get into my number 5. Which is an episode called Lion's Den. This came out in season 7, and it reminded me that season 7 aired in the early 2000s, because this represented everything that was terrible about the early 2000s, particularly those stupid high school, like, musical type, not High School Musical, I think that was, I don't know, but anyway, one of those high school types were like, oh, I'm badass and I'll show you, she's got that, all that, or whatever, that bullshit. I never watched that shit, so I don't know. Anyway, it's like that bullshit, but worse. So it's got Iceman from the X-Men, and he is captain of a wrestling team that's, like, who gives a fuck about a wrestling team? But anyway, he's captain of the wrestling team that sucks, and they're losing, and so the dude from Dark Matter and 24 comes over to the coach and it's like, hey, I got these pills that will help your team. This just like, minerals. It's like vitamins, it's not like a drug, it's not illegal. They're just like, it's like if they take B12, it's just the vitamins, and it turns them into fucking vampires. It turns them in, they say lions, so it's like lion pyres or lion wolves or whatever, were-lions, maybe that's what it's called. And because they got like fangs, and they start like ripping people to shreds and killing them when they try to take the drugs away from them. Of course, they make the team like win even better, and the coach eventually finds out that this about it, and tries to put a stop to it, and the Iceman, the wrestling captain, whatever, who's the coach's son, kills his own father and rips him to shreds with his fangs, and the Dark Matter guy takes over as a coach. Yeah, I buy that. And it's so dumb. They had like these cheesy, like, early 2000s-esque musical montage of them doing dun 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 with the really crappy pop music. Fuck this episode. Seriously. Anyway, let me get into number 4 on my list. It's a little episode called The Other Side. So this episode features Karate Kid himself, who puts in an okay performance. I mean, he's not an amazing actor, but it's decent. Every other actor in this show sucks. Like, the acting is so terrible. That's the main thing that stuck out to me. Maybe it's like cheesy dialogue. That's a combination. This felt like I was watching a Hallmark type, like, low budget, like, poorly written, sappy, cheesy show, not The Outer Limits. It did not feel like The Outer Limits. So it's about these people who are comas who meet in this magical place, and like, oh, isn't this so wonderful? And the Karate Kid puts more people in that place, and this one guy's grumpy, and then he's like, oh, I don't like this place. And then there's like a scary looking vortex that the Karate Kid tries to rescue people so they can wake up from the coma, but he ends up in the coma out of the well. And the whole time is really cheesy, poorly written, bad dialogue, terrible acting. Anywho. We'll then get into number 3, third worst episode of The Outer Limits. What would the neighbors think? So, this is one of those comedy episodes I was telling you about. And, you know what? It actually had a somewhat interesting premise. Like this, she's a recluse. What do they call it? A recluse? A shut-in? Or she's got psychological issues. She doesn't like to leave her apartment. And yet, she does leave her apartment a lot and talks to everyone else in the apartment building. I don't really know how that works, but she is in a wheelchair the whole time, even though she's not disabled and doesn't need to be in a wheelchair. Anywho, that's fine. Like, I thought it was an interesting premise, and she gets zapped by this, weird electricity, and she gains the power to read people's thoughts. I thought that was a really interesting premise, but what they acted like, the way people behaved in this episode was not, it was surreal. Like, it's not how people behave in real life. They were definitely doing a certain, like, style. I'm not sure what it's called or what it's similar to, but it was definitely, like, I guess you could almost call it Coen Brothers-esque, although that's being way too generous to that because it's nowhere near as good as a Coen Brothers film. But it's just bizarre, like, the way people talk. But anyway, she reads their thoughts, and every time she reads their thoughts, all they can talk about is wanting to kill people. And when the way that the episodes got terrible cinematography, and the sound design was terrible. Like, I could hear all the other episodes and the other ones just fine, but this episode, I like had to turn it up, and even then I got all this I couldn't make out what they were saying. I had to put like subtitles on, and whenever she heard like what people were saying, they were like go like have a real close up, and they would be like all angry and like when she was like listening to their thoughts, and it was so annoying and distracting, and whatever style that was stupid. And then, like, early in the episode, like, she could read, when she told her husband that she could read his thoughts and proved it to him, he started going, la, 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 and she didn't catch on to the fact that she was hiding something that from her. Of course he was. Every time he tried to read her thoughts, he was, like, trying to block out his mind and not think. And at the end, it's revealed that he was the bad guy all along, and he kills her. Fucking duh! I mean, come on. Why the hell do you think he was hiding his thoughts? Oh, God, this episode was so bad. It was so bad. Anyway, let's get into my number 2. Second worst episode of The Outer Limits. And that is, it's a fake! I mean, sorry. Beyond the Veil. So, this is a mental institution. This guy gets locked up because he thinks he sees aliens, and then he sees aliens when he's in the mental institution. And the main psychiatrist is played by Senator Vreenek. It's a fake. Anyway, and this is not at all in the slightest, tiniest, even slimmest bit realistic. The way that they behave in this mental institution, the way that the Senator Vreenek is an outright asshole to his patients, and the way he's like, oh, you're stupid for thinking there's aliens. And nothing, it's like a movie cliche gone, like, on steroids, idea of what a mental institution is like, and nothing, absolutely nothing what it would be like. And then the whole time the guy thinks he's seeing aliens, and it has like this dark twist ending where he's locked up forever, and the woman he loves is killed or some shit. I don't even remember. This episode was just that terrible. The twist ending was not good. It was boring. It was frustrating. It was terribly written, and it's a fake! Anyway, let's get into my number 1 worst episode of The Outer Limits. And that honor will go to the Revelations of Becca Paulson. So this is another one of those comedy episodes, and this was done in the similar style to the What the Neighbors Think one, but it's actually much worse. So it's about this housewife who lives in a trailer or some shit, but with this guy who's basically a moron. And again, similar to the other episode, everyone in this episode acts very obtuse and very weird, and not how people would actually act like in real life. It's the way they talk and the way they interact with each other is something that's really fake about it. I think it's trying to be stylized or something. Maybe some people actually like this shit, but I don't think so. So anyway, it's about this housewife who gets shot in the head, and she's alive. She's just fine. She acts like nothing's wrong. She goes to the doctor, who's that dude from, played the geeky guy from Stargate SG-1. I think it was Lee or something. It's been a while since I've seen that. Anyway, that doctor is like, you got a hole in your head. See, and then she goes out to the grocery store, and there's, at home she has this, like, picture frame that has, like, this picture. It came with the frame. This guy played by Steven Weber from Wings. And it starts talking to her, and she goes to the store, and there's a bunch of picture frames, and they all start talking to her and telling her shit, and telling her to do shit. And apparently, I think they're trying to say that because she got the bullets lodged in her brain is giving her, like, psychic powers or some shit. And then she gets electrocuted with her husband at the end. I can't even remember if they died, because I really didn't care, because I just wanted this crap episode to be over with. It was a failure in every sense of the term. It was not funny. It was weird, and not in a good way, in a really stupid way. And there's a picture frame talking to her. I'm like, and never, ever, for any reason, ever watching this episode again. So that is, in my opinion, the worst episode of The Outer Limits. So that's it for my top 20 worst episodes of The Outer Limits. See, this video wasn't that long. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you got different opinions, I'd love to hear in the comments, as long as you're civil, of course. But yeah, this is all just my opinions. I could be wrong. Anyway, be sure to check out my top 50 best episodes, top 40 best episodes of The Outer Limits, if you want, especially if you want something that's a bit more positive, where I really get into why I love this show so much, because it has so many great episodes, twice as many great episodes as bad episodes, because that's what good shows do. Anyway, check that out, as well as checking out many more videos on my channel, such as I cover videos on shows like Star Trek, The Expanse, Better Call Saul, and more, so be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.